The Civil War was one of the worst wars that America was involved in. It caused the most bloodshed of any war fought on American soil.
The question I get asked most often is, what event officially started the Civil War? To which I would say it was a Confederate attack on the Union-held Fort Sumter.
Many also say that slavery was one of the main causes. Slavery was an issue that divided the nation in two. Many compromises tried to solve it, such as the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850, but none of them seemed to work.
The Dred Scott decision also angered many, and it further divided the nation. Dred Scott was a slave who was taken into the North and lived there with his master for a time, but after his master died, he was taken back to the South. He sued and tried to gain freedom, claiming that since he had lived in the North, he was no longer a slave. The court denied his appeal because since he was African American, he could never be an American citizen. This brought a great uprising in the North.
The election of Abraham Lincoln was one of the final nails in the coffin, so to speak. He was the Republican candidate, and he defeated Stephen Douglas, John Bell, and John Breckinridge. This angered the South, and they threatened to secede soon after this election.
The Battle of the Bull Run was fought on July 21st, 1861, in Prince William County, just north of Manassas. It was the first major battle of the Civil War. The Union forces initially outnumbered the Confederate forces, but were slow to position themselves, and they gave the South time to get reinforcements. Each side had about 18,000 young and untrained troops. It was a victory for the Confederates, and the Union had a very disorganized retreat.
No! No!
The Battle of Antietam was fought on September 17, 1862. It was roughly around Sharpsburg, Maryland, in Antietam Creek. The Union won this battle. You could say it was the most bloodiest single-day battle in American history, with 22,717 soldiers wounded, missing, or dead.
Die, Confederate scum! Bow! 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 The Battle of Shiloh was the bloodiest battle of the Civil War. It lasted 2 days on April 6th through 7th of 1862. Each side had thousands of casualties. Ulysses S. Grant was leading the North, and the South was led by Albert Sidney Johnston. It resulted in a Union victory, even though they had more casualties in the South. Boom! Boom! Boom!
The Battle of Chancellorsville was a very important battle. It was fought on April 30th and lasted until May 6, 1863. The battle was fought in Spotsylvania County in Virginia near the village of Chancellorsville. It was known as General Lee's perfect battle because of his risky decision to divide his army and take the Union Army. Lee's decision and Hooker's timid nature led to a Confederate victory.
The Battle of Gettysburg was the largest conflict of the Civil War. It was a major turning point for the Union. Before this battle, they had been losing over and over. It took place on July 1st through the 3rd, 1863. It was fought in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Union general in charge was George G. Meade, and the Confederate general in charge was Robert E. Lee. He was very smart. He was a very smart strategist. Each side had about 80,000 troops. Out of those men, 23,049 Union soldiers died, and 28,063 Confederate soldiers died. It was a huge win for the Union.
My name is Rusty Fender. I took part in Picker's charge. The cannons tore us apart. Once we reached the Union lines, we engaged them in hand-to-hand combat. I had an outstanding KD ratio, but while I was attacking a Union soldier, another one came up behind me, slashed off my arm, and proceeded to hack off my legs. Then I went to super MG and no-scoped that noob in the face. Then my friend Jonathan Newson Seco It was a medic heal me up and I gotta go home. I hate what the Union did to me. Pew, pew, pew. Pew.
My husband went off to the war to fight the North and he never came back. He was killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. He was in the same regiment as Rusty Fender and he was killed in Picker's charge. He left behind the plantation and we only had one daughter, so now I have to run the plantation on my own. It's hard to run a plantation and also fit the mold of the society wants you to. I miss my husband on the evil intentions of the Union. They want to destroy our life, our way of life, by taking away our slaves.
When I became president of the United States, I knew this country was in bad shape. But things went from bad to worse when South Carolina seceded. I've received many death threats since I became president because of my stance on slavery. Now I'm doing whatever I can to be honest all the time and put this country back together where all men are truly equal. Now human beings should have to be treated like property. I will fight for my country so we can be the great nation that I know we should be. Soon the South was near defeat. General Lee attempted to break through Grant's lines at Petersburg, Virginia, on April 2nd, 1865. However, the Union seized Petersburg and then Richmond the next day. General Grant and his forces cut off General Lee and his men's escape attempt. On April 9th, 1865, Lee waved a white flag on a hill overlooking Appomattox River. Grant accepted his surrender at the Appomattox courthouse. This is the beginning of the end of the war.
The war officially ended on May 9, 1865. The conflict had lasted 4 years. The Confederate forces had been defeated. The country was reunited.
Though the war ended in 1865, racism did not end with it. Even though slavery had been abolished, many did not see African Americans as citizens. Although hatred towards the North did not did not end. On April 15, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. This was crushing because many thought that Lincoln was one of the only reasons this country was reunited.
The Civil War will forever be remembered as a horrible conflict between Americans that cost many lives. We should remember the Civil War and the mistakes that led to it so we don't do the same thing. Thanks to the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of people, we are no longer divided. We are one nation that believes that all men are created equal.